They say this is a big rich town. Oh, I just come from the poorest part. White like city lights, I gotta make it. This is where it goes down. I just happen to come apart. Legal or illegal, baby, I gotta make it. So fun. If you owe me money, they say this is a big rich town. They say this is a big rich town. Oh, I just come from the poorest part. White like city lights, I gotta make it. This is where it goes down. I just happen to come apart. Legal or illegal, baby, I gotta make it. So fun. If you owe me money, they say this is a big rich town. They say this is a big rich town. Oh, I just come from the poorest part. White like city lights, I gotta make it. This is where it goes down. I just happen to come apart. Legal or illegal, baby, I gotta make it. So fun. If you owe me money, they say this is a big rich town. They say this is a big rich town. Oh, I just come from the poorest part. White like city lights, I gotta make it. This is where it goes down. I just happen to come apart. Legal or illegal, baby, I gotta make it. So fun. If you owe me money, they say this is a big rich town. They say this is a big rich town. Oh, I just come from the poorest part. White like city lights, I gotta make it. This is where it goes down. I just happen to come apart. Legal or illegal, baby, I gotta make it. So fun. If you owe me money, they say this is a big rich town.
That snake that she loved very much. The snake was about 7 feet long, and one day it just stopped eating. After several weeks of trying everything, the lady still got the snake to eat. The woman took the snake to the vet and explained her situation. The vet replied, "I see. Has your snake been sleeping with you at night or snuggling real close and stretching himself out?" The woman said, "Yes, every day, and it makes me so sad that I can't help him feel better." The vet said to the lady, "Ma'am, your snake is not sick. It has been preparing to eat you. He's been sizing you up every day so he knows how big he has to be. He's not eating, so he has enough room to digest you." Moral of the story: recognize the snakes around you. Just because they seem close to you doesn't mean their intentions aren't to devour you. A woman had a pet snake.
ACP, you see this?
Look, if it ain't official Dana J, Prima Donna News, I don't even want to see it.
But I know that there's more for you, more for us.
Children, rain all night long. Didn't it all, didn't it all, oh my Lord, didn't it rain? Didn't it rain, children, rain all night long? Didn't it all, didn't it all, oh my Lord, didn't it rain?
You can't run from it. You can't deny it. You can't pass it off. It's your call. God knew what he was doing. He knew who he was calling. And he expertly and intricately detailed every aspect of your life, your being, your persona, your psyche, your physicality, everything about you, from the texture of your hair to the color of your eyes to the way that you laugh to the fingerprint on your thumb. Everything is connected to your calling. And until you walk into the fullness of the thing that you were created for, you will find yourself frustrated. You're called.
Meadow Rose, come here. Girl, you know that I want it. I know you get lonely, and that's why you call me. You know that I'm coming. You know that I want it. You're making me horny. Wanna know how it tastes, baby. Can't wait, cause the shit sound like black boots, show the secret right there. Attitude, but I got you, baby. We gon' get the thing winding. All night, can't stop you, baby. No one ain't with the fake shit. What's the 411 is, baby? Stop acting brand new. Girl, tell me, what must I do? What must I do? So tell me, what must I say? What must I do to show how much? Hold up, hey, this shit, Zelle. Black boots show the secret right there. And I want your body. Hey, yeah, I love my body. Yeah, I I know you get rowdy, yeah. Wanna know how it tastes, baby? Can't wait 'cause this shit sound like Bruce trying to see grinding. Attitude, but I got you, baby. You gon' keep the thing running. All night can't stop you, baby. No, I ain't with the fake shit. What the 411 is, baby? It's all here for you. Just tell me what must I do? You should come through, lady. This shit, salad. Black boots trying to see grinding. Yeah, this shit, salad. Black boots trying to see grinding. This shit feel like grinding.
Yo, check it out. Yeah. Shout out to the Dream Team, the best team in the land. What's going on, man? Y'all know how we do out there. Shout out to everybody that's in the chat. I mean, it's been an eventful 24 hours. Y'all see how that thing just came back in like that? It's been eventful 24 hours. I'm telling you. Shout out to Gospel Glam. I'm telling you now, my sister's in the building. All of my friends are in the building. All of my family is in the building. Love every last one of y'all, man. But I got to do this real quick. Because 24 hours has been great. But I got to do this real quick. Check it out. I got to do it.
Black president, that's Trump. No, we got President Trump.
Did y'all see the debate last night? Did y'all see the debate last night? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. What up, me? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I need to get on the remix of this. I'm saying, did y'all see the debate last night? Let's go.
Blacks voting Trump, I heard Biden's gonna fire us. But that's okay, cause Donald Trump's
gonna hire us.
I pay the IRS, they send my bread to Ukraine. They killing babies, getting abortions, that's the new wave. 100 bands up on my chain, baby. I'm a rich slave. You voting Democrat, just know that come with 3K. The glove don't fit, they must have quit. OJ in this bitch. A message to Alvin Bragg, Uncle Trump is innocent.
Yeah.
I was in the Bronx, I seen it with my own eyes. It's a red wave, baby. I'm a patriot for life. Robert De Niro. Ooh, boy, we laughing.
Get everybody in here. Shout out to everybody that's here. I'm just saying what's going on. Princess Di, how you doing? Faith, what's going on? I see Willie.
I blame Obama and Bush, the Clinton family too.
Hey.
Black president Donald Trump. Niggas make me feel pissed.
Woo!
I'm Michael Black man. Blacks for Trump, nigga. You hear what I'm trying to tell you?
I'm gonna drop some knowledge today.
Get out of my Democrats gonna say, ooh,
Hit it, Reek.
Shoot-bop. When the legs out of your light of the bed, come grab my teeth from my throat to my head. The unfuck the loving, right? You know she got Megan. I'm give up some loving, she don't stop begging. I know you can't.
Yo, I just had to do that real quick, man. Shout out to everybody that came out last night. Everybody that I invited came except for one. Lord have mercy, but shout out to everybody that was there, man. I mean, when I tell you that everything is good, when I tell you that everything is good, I mean good. So I had fun last night. I was at the Revolt debate, and we did do the Revolt debate. So I was there. And I was there from the beginning to the end. So at the revolt debate, and we watched Biden and Trump. We watched both of them go head to head, and at the CNN Center. Little do anybody know. I'm gonna give y'all a little background real quick. Little do anybody know that black media, as they call it, was not invited at the CNN Center. However, CNN is located in the Black Hollywood, the mecca of colored folks, the mecca of indigenous folks. So what the plan is now is to make CNN uncomfortable because of the stuff and the stunts that they pulled yesterday. No, the debate was not at the CNN Center, but the debate was at Georgia Tech. I was at Revolt Studios, which was approximately 10 minutes away from Georgia Tech. I can say that much. 10 minutes away from Georgia Tech. At the end of the day, we learned a lot of things last night. That stuff that people were saying, stuff that people was believing. Some people held firm to what they believe in. Some people didn't. By the end of the night, some people changed their stories. Some people, changed their lives, which is expected. I purposely invited not just a person who I deem to be now a friend of mine, but a well-known Democrat. And that person was in heaven because it was Democrat country last night. But you know us, MAGA stand strong. MAGA don't fold. So what happened was it was a lot of back and forth last night. It was a lot of I don't know. It's a lot of Trump hating. It's a lot of Trump is senile and Trump this, Trump that. But after the debate, it was a clear understanding after the debate that Joe Biden is bad for the country. Some people will make hasty things and say, "No, Dana, you wrong. Joe Biden is a good president." Okay, that's fine. That's your opinion. That's your opinion. But I'm looking at facts right now. I don't have time for opinions. I have time for facts. And when you look at the facts proves otherwise. However, I am not going to bash Joe Biden, no matter how I feel. What I am going to do is put the truth out there. And because people do not like Trump, they make up in their mind that, oh, Trump is a bad person. Trump did this, Trump did that. And you will hear multiple stories of what Trump did and did not do. And you will hear a lot of stuff. Wisdom Daughter in the building. What's going on? You will hear a lot of stuff. See, and Wisdom Daughter said facts are Trump straight up lied. I wish he had told the truth. Well, you know, all day today, I'm going live on both of my channels. I'm going to fluctuate channels because some things I can talk about on my other channel, I can't talk about on here. So some things I can talk about on here, I can't talk on my other channel. So what I will say is a lot of things happen in 24 hours. And we had the first debate where Joe Biden went to sleep, where Joe Biden deprogrammed, where he lied about some things. And the thing that got me was when people said they clapped, and when Joe Biden said, well, you are a convicted felon. And I tried to explain to people last night that when you have a stooge court that's against you, that really don't matter, because as soon as that was broadcasted, right, everybody ran with that. But when Trump came back and said, no, your son is a convicted felon and will be more times over, everybody wanted to keep that hush hush. The crazy part about all of this is we looking at two older guys, Trump and Biden, right? And I got a question at the end, and before I show the Supreme Court when they first heard it. So the way I'm gonna do this is I'm a spot catch. I'm gonna put some things here, put some things there, and I'm gonna show the Supreme Court hearing at the end. But I'm gonna show before the end, I'm gonna show what the ruling was, because the Supreme Court made a major ruling today, which by the time the Democrats wake up, by the time Joe Biden wake up from being robotized and blinking, he's going to learn that their cases are over. The cases are over. That's all I'm going to tell you. The cases are over. And now that this has come out, I'm going to do a January 6th, 36-day marathon. And I'm going to show every day, I'm going to show different angles and different footages that come from the Capitol CCTV. I just was given a green light that I can show the CCTV stuff. And the crazy part was, I'm glad I didn't jump the gun, because they could have prosecuted me for this. So with that being said, right, the first thing we're going to talk about is my boy, Alex Jones. Let's get straight into it. Judge blocks Sandy Hook family. Hold on. Judge blocks Sandy Hook family from collecting $50 million owed by Alex Jones. Top line. A federal bankruptcy judge on Thursday prevented a Sandy Hook's victim's family from receiving some of the nearly $50 million owed by Alex Jones, after a court-appointed trustee overseeing Jones' liquidation accused the family of attempting a money grab, as the InfoWars host owes roughly $1.5 billion for spreading conspiracy theories about the shooting. Let's stop for a minute. And remember, a conspiracy theories, right, is what the government put out there to combat people who don't believe in what they believe in. So that's just a derogatory term that people use, okay? Key facts. Judge Christopher Lopez overruled a Texas judge's ruling allowing Scarlett Lewis and Neil Heslin, whose 6-year-old son Jesse was unalived, in the shooting, to start collecting funds from Jones' company Free Speech Systems, saying the ruling conflicted with federal bankruptcy law, according to court filings. A Texas jury had ordered Jones to pay Lewis and Heslin $49.3 million in damages in August 2022. Earlier this week, Lewis and Heslin requested a state district court judge to have Free Speech Systems turn over all money, including money held in any bank accounts or being controlled by any other third parties, at the direction of the company. According to a separate court filing, Christopher Mary, a trustee overseeing Jones' liquidation, accused Lewis and Heslin of a value-destructive money grab because he had not finished an orderly wind down and liquidation of Free Speech Systems. What to watch for. Jones' liquidation could result in InfoWars being shut down, as Murray could require Jones to sell free speech systems, according to CNN. Big number, at least 9 million. That's how much Jones reported in total assets as of his latest financial statements. Bernard Pettingill Jr., a forensic economist who testified during Lewis and Haslam's case against Jones, estimated Jones to be worth up to $270 million. So, with that being said, the family really is not after, and the family is not really after Alex Jones. They're not really after the funds. They're after InfoWars, which is a platform, that puts out truth. Some people say it's conspiracy theories, but everything that Alex Jones has said has came true. So you can't have something that come true that's a conspiracy theory. Make it make sense. On that being said, also last night, it was a topic that came up in the Revolt War Room. That's what I called it last night. It was the War Room, the Revolt War Room, and this was one of the topics that myself and Wisdom Daughter was just stunned by, because Wisdom Daughter was there last night, and we were just stunned by it, because I didn't understand that people, and I'm not trying to get Christian or biblical, but I didn't understand how people can be so demonic and then proclaim to be so Christian at the same time. I didn't understand it. So when we talked about church and state last night, we kind of touched on that. And for people who don't know, that you used to be able to pray, or it was a recommendation to pray in our classrooms and schools across America before you start the day. An atheist lady went and had prayer taken out of schools. So now it's being instituted back into the schools, and people are having problems with it. And the first thing they saying is, which was said last night, that they don't believe that religion or Christian or 10 Commandments or whatever should be pushed on to the kids. So my question that I was going to ask, and I think I abruptly asked, but I said, y'all got a problem with pushing religion on a child, but y'all don't have a problem with pushing homosexuality on a child. I said, something's wrong with that. So when I went and looked, I seen what they were talking about. And I said, they are evil. But it gets to the point where these were even young people. And I'm talking about young folks talking about, oh, I go to Clark Atlanta. I do this. So what, you go to Clark? I went to Clark. I played football for Clark. And like I said, I slept on the floor at Clark because Clark did not do what they were supposed to do for the football team under Coach Baha. And truth to be told, if we wasn't winning games then, the people that's there now probably wouldn't be at Clark now. And Clark, as I found out last night, is one of the worst HBCUs in the world. But it costs a fortune to go there. Make that make sense. Oh, what's going on? What's going on, cuz? So what's going on is I got the clip for y'all. And it says, oh my God, Oklahoma State Superintendent says the Bible and the 10 Commandments are foundational for Western civilization and will be in every single classroom in the state. This person said, I have tears of joy. Wow. Drop a period if God is good. Now, let's listen to what he says. Check this out.
We're going to make an important announcement today regarding the Bible and the Ten Commandments. My staff has been looking at Oklahoma statute. We've been looking at Oklahoma academic standards. And it's crystal clear to us that in the Oklahoma academic standards, under Title 70, multiple occasions, the Bible is a necessary historical document to teach our kids about the history of this country, to have a complete understanding of Western civilization, to have an understanding of the basis of our legal system, and is frankly, when we're talking about the Bible, one of the most foundational documents used for the Constitution and the birth of our country. We also find major points in history that refer to the Bible, that reference the Bible. We see multiple figures, whether we're talking about the Federalist Papers, constitutional conventional arguments, and Martin Luther King Jr., who use it as a tremendous impetus for the civil rights movement and tie many of those arguments back to the Bible. It is essential that our kids have an understanding of the Bible and its historical context. So we will be issuing a memo today that every school district will adhere to, which is that every teacher, every classroom in the state will have a Bible in the classroom and will be teaching from the Bible in the classroom to ensure that this historical understanding is there for every student in the state of Oklahoma in accordance with our academic standards and state law.
Wow. I'm going to pause there for a second before I get into the deep stuff. And I just want to know real quick, what do y'all think about that? What do y'all think about that? If y'all love it, put love it. If y'all hate it, put hate it in there. Because after this, we about to go into deep waters. We about to go into deep waters. So if y'all love that Oklahoma state is doing what every state should do and put the Bible and the Ten Commandments back into every classroom, just say y'all love it. If y'all hate it, just say y'all hate it. Because this is really to a point where God is really moving and he's really trying to see something. He's really trying to see something. While you at it, hit that like button. Hit that like, share, subscribe button. Also hit the super chat at the bottom of the page. There's the box with the $sign in it. Or you can go ahead and hit the Cash App, $OfficialDanaJay. I have one person, Princess Diana, says she loves it. This is what I'm talking about. This is how you separate the tare from the wheat. Because you got some people who just won't say nothing, but they will secretly hate, or they will go which whatever way it should go. Larry Mack said, love it. It should be there. Facts. So let's go into some deep territories. Wisdom daughter, I pray that you're still here, because everything that you asked for, you about to get. So I hope you're still here. And the reason why I say that is because me and Wisdom daughter had a nice little debate last night. A nice debate. And everything she wanted to hear is going to be just like this.
You know the biggest crowd I've ever seen? January 6th. They were there largely to protest a corrupt and rigged and stolen election.
Democrats can say there needs to be unrest in the streets, but they're going to impeach the president for saying
Peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Whenever they take a clip from President Trump, they always leave out that ending clip of let's march peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol.
Just the key point that yes, there was a pro-Trump rally at which the president spoke, and we can absolutely talk about all the things the president said there. But the idea that that rally is the thing that got out of hand and that somehow resulted in the breaching of the Capitol, that rally was very far from the Capitol. Yep. And the people who, as you say, did the initial breach that allowed everybody else to come in, they never even went to that rally.
Why aren't they investigating massive election fraud and irregularities instead of investigating the people who want to get to the bottom of a rigged and stolen election?
DOJ announced that the FBI and the Pennsylvania State Police are investigating fraud in mail-in ballots in Luzerne County. That's the place Donald Trump won by double digits 4 years ago.
They are saying that there was a batch of ballots where 60% had the same signature. They are saying that 35 ballots had no voter record, but they were counted anyway, that 50 ballots were run multiple times.
In Nevada, at least 10,000 non-residents were allowed to send in ballots for counting there.
According to DOJ, several military ballots were, quote, discarded. Investigators have recovered a total of 9 ballots so far. Not surprisingly, the DOJ says an overwhelming majority of those ballots were cast for guess who? Donald Trump.
The elections are totally corrupt in our country. They have been for a long time, but never like they were this last time.
I got a question. Somebody got some explaining to do. I got a question. Somebody got some explaining to do.
Do you know the biggest crowd? Do you know the biggest crowd I've ever?
Hold on, Trump. Hold on, Trump.
Do you know the biggest crowd I've ever?
Hold on, Trump. Hold on.
Do you know the biggest crowd?
Somebody got some explaining to do, because it was said that Donald Trump sent the people to the Capitol to destroy the Capitol, right? Now watch this. If Donald Trump sent people to the Capitol to destroy the Capitol and to stop the sham job from true president to fake president with the aid of Rhino Michael Pence, then one, why was they charged with obstruction? And I know some people are going to say, well, obstruction is when you go and alter. Right. That is what obstruction is. But how can you charge people with obstruction that was escorted in the building? We still haven't got an arrest for Ashley Babbitt, the only woman that was killed at January 6th by the hands of a police officer that was acting out of his scope. Now, I know some people are going to say, oh, well, some police officers died at the No police officer died at January 6th. No police officer died because of January the 6th. Yes, some police officers got beat up by Antifa, and I've been saying that. But no Trump supporters or no MAGA supporters participated in none of that. Reason being, because everybody was at the speech. And from where the speech is to where the Capitol is, there's no way they could have got there in 26.5 seconds. But this is what people don't want to hear. Trump said, peacefully, let's march peacefully and patriotically. But you know what they say? Oh, Trump is the one that started the riot. How? If I'm telling you to go peacefully and patriotically, how am I starting a riot? If I'm calling Nancy Pelosi and I'm calling the DC mayor and governor and say, look, I'm sending 100,000 military folks there, National Guard, and y'all tell me no, and y'all cancel it, what am I supposed to do? That means y'all setting me up, really. But I'm going to play this again for the people who didn't hear it the first time. Like Wisdom's daughter. Check this out.
Do you know the biggest crowd I've ever seen? January 6th. They were there largely to protest a corrupt and rigged and stolen election.
Democrats can say there needs to be unrest in the streets, but they're going to impeach the president for saying
Peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Whenever they take a clip from President Trump, they always leave out that ending clip of let's march peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol.
Just the key point that, yes, there was a pro-Trump rally at which the president spoke, and we can absolutely talk about all the things the president said there. But the idea that that rally is the thing that got out of hand and that somehow resulted in the breaching of the Capitol, that rally was very far from the Capitol. Yep. And the people who, as you say, did the initial breach that allowed everybody else to come in, they never even went to that rally.
Why aren't they investigating massive election fraud and irregularities instead of investigating the people who want to get to the bottom of a rigged and stolen election?
DOJ announced that the FBI and the Pennsylvania State Police are investigating fraud in mail-in ballots in Luzerne County. That's the place Donald Trump won by double digits 4 years ago.
They are saying that there was a batch of ballots where 60% had the same signature. They are saying that 35 ballots had no voter record, but they were counted anyway, that 50 ballots were run multiple times.
In Nevada, at least 10,000 non-residents were allowed to send in ballots for counting there.
According to DOJ, several military ballots were, quote, discarded. Investigators have recovered a total of 9 ballots so far. Not surprisingly, the DOJ says an overwhelming majority of those ballots were cast for guess who? Donald Trump.
The elections are totally corrupt in our country. They have been for a long time, but never like they were this last time.
So with that being said, one thing I can say, if Trump is wrong about something, I'm going to point it out. If Biden is wrong, I'm going to point it out. It just seems one-sided because a lot of stuff that's been going on, Biden has been wrong about. And people are like, oh no, Trump got 31 charges and this and this and this and this. But listen, if you in a court and you trying to defend yourself and you can't bring a defense in at all, and on top of that, your daughter is running a smear campaign and collecting money for her dad to make sure all of this, make sure it come clean. Watch this. This is the D-Day. Wisdom Daughter said 34 felony convictions. Okay. This is the D-Day that everybody. Well, no. And back it up. This ain't the D-Day. This is the semi-D-Day that every person that said January the 6th was a riot is going to regret. And I'm going to show you why. Supreme Court. Uh-oh. I told y'all it happened. All within 24 hours because Biden went up there and did what he said. Okay. Supreme Court makes it harder to charge Capitol riot defendants with obstruction. Charge Trump faces. Uh-oh. So guess what? You got to throw that obstruction charge off of Trump, which was the catalyst for Donald Trump's J6 trial in DC. Uh-oh. Don't get scared now. The Supreme Court on Friday made it harder to charge Capitol riot defendants with obstruction, a charge used in hundreds of prosecutions and also faced by former President Donald Trump. The justices ruled 6-3 that the charge of obstructing an official proceeding enacted in 2002 in response to the financial scandal that brought down Enron Corporation must include proof that defendants tried to tamper with or destroy documents. Uh-oh, what have I been telling y'all? It must include proof that defendants tried to tamper with or destroy documents. So hold on. If January the 6th happened, right? When Antifa was breaking windows and all that, breaking the windows and all that stuff going on. When the Capitol Police took the shaman and his little crew in, the Proud Boys, when they was escorted in and shown around and all that, and they put their feet on Nancy Pelosi desk and this, they didn't touch no documents. Nor did they try to tamper with them. Nor did they try to destroy any documents. Which means you can't charge them with obstruction. And the only reason why you charge them with obstruction because your feelings were hurt. And then you turn around and charge Trump with obstruction. But hold on, you can't charge a man with something that's false. My question then and my question now still remain the same, which is, if you believe that it was an insurrection, why didn't you charge Trump as an insurrectionist? Make it make sense. Ashley Davis said, I thought they stole her computer or laptop or something. Here's my thing, what I told everybody. The person that took her laptop was from the military. That military person that went in and took Nancy Pelosi's laptop was sent in. Which means, if that was the case, how many operatives were they disguised as Trump supporters that went in and got the information that they need to bring down Nancy Pelosi and her scheme? When I tell y'all this is way deeper than what y'all think. Way deeper. Because people started to wake up back at 9/11. Ask yourself this question. And this is off the record. Ask yourself this question. When they destroyed the two towers, why did they destroy the lower tower? And remind yourself, the lower tower wasn't hit by a plane. So why did that explode? And it was nowhere near the two towers. Make this stuff make sense. You're living in the evil and perilous times. So it says only some of the people who violently attacked the Capitol on January the 6th, 2021 fall into that category. So hold on. Who violently attacked the Capitol? Nobody. The decision could be used to fodder for claims by Trump and his Republican allies that the Justice Department has treated the Capitol riot defendants unfairly. Make it make sense. It's unclear how the court's decision will affect the case against Trump in Washington, although special counsel Jack Smith has said the charges faced by the former president will not be affected. Now watch this. Jack Smith said the charges faced by a former president will not be affected. How sway? You can't come and say that when the Supreme Court has already said that you can't charge them with obstruction, which gives you the ideology or the theory that what's about to happen. They about to try to overrule the Supreme Court. They about to just try to do things anyway, which is wrong. And watch this. You don't see no Democrat talking about it. You don't see no Democrat saying, no, that's wrong. We can't do that. You don't see no Democrat sitting back saying, well, you shouldn't do that right there. We ain't backing this. You don't see none of that. So then it says the High Court returned the case of former Pennsylvania police officer Joseph Fisher to a lower court to determine if Fisher can be charged with obstruction. Fisher has been indicted for his role in disrupting Congress certification of Democrat Joe Biden's 2020 presidential election victory over Trump. Fisher is among about 350 people who have been charged with obstruction. Some pleaded guilty to or were convicted of lesser charges. So hold on. That means, hey, Galatians 6:7, for that means everything that they have done have to be overturned. It have to be. So it says Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the court's opinion, joined by conservative Justice Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and guess what? My guy, Clarence Thomas. And by liberal Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Oh my God. She finally jumped in and got something right. Reading the obstruction statute broadly would also criminalize a broad swath of prosaic conduct, exposing activists and lobbyists to decades in prison, Roberts wrote. Justice Amy Coney Barrett dissented, along with Justices Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor. Barrett, one of the three justices appointed by Trump, wrote that the law clearly encompasses the events of January the 6th. The riot forced Congress to suspend the proceeding, delaying it for several hours, she wrote. She said her colleagues in the majority did textual backflips to find some way anyway to narrow the reach of the obstruction law. Attorney General Merrick Garland, I swear I wish he'd go to jail, said he was disappointed with the decision, which he said limits an important federal statute. Still, Garland said the cases against the vast majority of people charged in the attack won't be affected. Why? This lets you know that they don't care what the Supreme Court say. Then it says January 6th was an unprecedented attack on the cornerstone of our system of government. The peaceful transfer of power from one administration to the next, he said. We will continue to use all available tools to hold accountable those criminally responsible for the January the 6th attack on our democracy. So hold on. Hold on. I got a question. I have a question. So hold on. Trump posted on his Truth Social platform shortly after the decision, calling the ruling big news. He shared another message that described the ruling as a massive victory for J6 political prisoners. Now I have a question, and this involves all of you. My question is, when did the United States of America become a democracy? And I'll sit and I'll wait for this answer. When did the United States become a democracy? I'll sit and wait for this one. When did the United States of America become a democracy? Willie said there's no democracy. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Willie said there's no democracy. So do anybody else know what do you live in? Which goes and tell you everything that I've been telling you for the longest. That the Democrats is trying to place us in a democracy. But for all of you that went to school, we had this little saying in school that says, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, from which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, right? And then there's another thing we had that said, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. That's a republic to me. That's a republic to me. And Galatians said Biden sounded like he was out of oxygen last. Definitely, he sounded crazy last night. Definitely. So here's another trick. They trying to say that, oh no, the January the 6th, it was a riot, this and this and this and this. But how do you destroy the evidence? You think I'm joking? Watch this. This gonna have you baffled.
Can you confirm to us that the videotapes of Cassidy Hutchinson, the ones where she's now changing her testimony through the errata, that they are missing, they are gone?
Hey, LaRoe.
That is true. I can confirm that, and all of the videotapes of all depositions are gone. Again, we found out about this early in the investigation when I received a call from someone who was looking for some information off one of the videotapes, and we started searching and we had none. I wrote a letter to Benny Thompson asking for them, and he confirmed that they did not preserve those tapes. He didn't feel that they had to, but according to House rules, you have to preserve any data and information and documents that are used in an official proceeding, which they did. They actually aired portions of these tapes on their televised hearings, which means they had to keep those. But yet he chose not to. I believe they exist somewhere. We've just got to find where all these videos are. And here's why it's so important. Even with Cassidy Hutchins, people have asked, why do you need the videos? You've got written transcripts. Well, when you've got someone like Cassidy who is significantly changing her testimony, I want to see what her body language is when she gave her original testimony. I want to see what her voice inflection is. Was she very confident in what she was saying at that time, but then later decided to change it? This is why it's so important that we have those videotapes, and I believe that's probably why we don't have them.
How would you recommend to President Trump that he makes sure that that comparison is so incredibly stark tonight?
I believe the way you address that is Joe says whatever he says, if he can get the words out or not. And the point that you use to redirect is, but Joe, you've been president for the last 3.5 years, and look at what you've done. Because that transition point, that phrase, that phraseology, I think has the voters say, yeah, why do they keep talking about that?
Well, like I say, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We don't live in a democracy. A republic can never be a democracy. So let's continue. The Politico says the Supreme Court takes its deepest plunge into January the 6th with possible implications for Trump. The High Court will hear arguments over whether Capitol rioters can be convicted of obstructing Congress business, a law passed in the wake of the Ooze-era Enron scandal. The Supreme Court is expected to grapple Tuesday in detail for the first time with the chaos and violence of the January 6, 2021 riot at the Capitol when it hears arguments in a case that could upend hundreds of convictions and potentially undermine some pending criminal charges against former President Donald Trump. The case turns squarely on the actions pro-Trump rioters took that day. See, pro-Trump rioters, and they wasn't pro-Trump rioters, took that day, including ransacking the Capitol and bludgeoning police officers, and whether the felony obstruction charge the Justice Department has deployed against many of them is being used appropriately. The High Court's ultimate ruling expected by the end of June, could overturn hundreds of January 6 felony convictions and hamper numerous pending prosecutions. A ruling against the Justice Department could even ripple into special counsel Jack Smith's case against Trump, whom he charged with 2 charges of obstructing Congress business that day. Until this week, the justices had not dealt publicly in any depth with the violence of January 6th or who can be held legally responsible for it. The justices barely mentioned the riot when they heard arguments in February on efforts in some states to remove Trump from the 2024 ballot for stoking the January the 6th insurrection, or when they resolved that legal fight in Trump's favor. They declined to consider Trump's challenge to the January 6th Select Congressional Committee as it sought to obtain his White House records, and they rejected former Arizona State GOP Chair Kelly Ward's bid to stop the Select Committee from obtaining her phone records. The justices also turned down Senator Lindsey Graham's bid to block a subpoena from Georgia investigators pursuing their own probe related to the 2020 election. The current case, however, Fisher versus United States, was actually brought by a January 6th defendant, Joseph Fisher, who says that 20-year-old obstruction statute passed in the wake of the Enron financial scandal was not intended to cover the type of conduct that rioters engaged in on January the 6th. Rather, Fisher argues it was supposed to be limited to classic cases of evidence tampering, like foregoing or shredding documents. Ooh. Angela Stanton King was there. She was in DC. Ooh. So with that being said, let's take a look at this right here. Let's deep dive into this. Let's go.
More breaking news, this time about the January 6th rioters. The Supreme Court has just ruled. Let's get to Shannon Bream. What did they say?
So what they have said is that one of the statutes the Justice Department used to charge hundreds of different January 6 defendants is no good. And that includes President Donald Trump, because he has actually had 2 of these counts against him in the Jack Smith D.C. case against him, that federal criminal case that has been on hold here. So what essentially they say is this statute, which was passed in the wake of Enron, they say it doesn't fit here. He says, given that the subsection was enacted to address the Enron disaster, not some other far-flung set of dangers like what happened just right over here at the Capitol, it is unlikely that Congress responded with such an unfocused and grossly incommensurate patch in English that essentially means that all of these people who were charged under this particular obstruction statute for January 6th, that is no good. The dissent, this is a very interesting vote makeup, because the dissent is actually written by Justice Barrett, and she is joined by Justices Sotomayor and Kagan. She says that Congress did intend for this kind of conduct to be brought under this particular obstruction charge. She thinks the majority got it wrong. But what it means is a big headache for the DOJ and good news for hundreds of January 6 defendants charged under this statute, again, including President Trump.
It's a big ruling, too.
Yeah.
I mean, these are big cases. Let's bring back Andy McCarthy, Jonathan Turley. Andy, this is, what does it mean? Big picture for these January 6th
and how many people
defendants.
And how many people was this statute? Did it apply to all these cases?
Well, it applied to all of them, or many of them, Dana, in the sense that it was charged in them. It doesn't mean that everybody who pled guilty, for example, which happened massively in that connection, doesn't mean that all those people have preserved their right to complain about that on appeal. So how many of them it will actually benefit is questionable. But the importance here is that they have found that this is an evidence impairment statute. So in other words, for this kind of obstruction to apply, you actually have to corrupt the documentary evidence that's being presented in a proceeding. The way the Justice Department tried to apply it was that if you engage in conduct that prevents the proceeding from happening in the first place, that it was applicable. The court seems to me emphatically to be saying that that's not the case, at least the majority decision. And I think the importance with respect to President Trump is Number one, does Jack Smith have to supersede his indictment? Because the most important 2 counts of that indictment are this obstruction statute. I think what he would come back and say is that his obstruction theory in the case includes what they call the fake electors scheme, where they actually provided certificates to the Congress for purposes of, according to the prosecutors, undermining the proceeding at which President Biden's victory was certified. So it'll be interesting to see what Jack Smith has to do with his case, and does he have to go back to the grand jury and supersede it? If he has to do that, hard to imagine that this case could get to trial.
Jonathan, do any of the rioters who are in jail today get released because of this?
They very well could be. There's 2 aspects to this. Some of them were convicted of what is now established to be improper charges. I mean, that hundreds of people were the subject of improper charges by the Justice Department. That includes President Trump, who has not been tried yet. They were also sentenced based on this conviction as well as a mix of other things. So those sentencing decisions now have to be reevaluated. I've said all along that I was surprised by how heavy the Department of Justice went on obstruction. I analogized it to someone going to Vegas and playing roulette but only betting red. Well, basically the court just said red's not a bet. So we've got to go back and look at all of these cases, not just for those who now have these convictions knocked out, but how they impact sentencing. For President Trump, this is a big day. I mean, I've said all along that Fisher needs to be treated as important as the immunity decision potentially for Trump. It basically rips the wings off the plane that Jack Smith is trying to get off the ground in D.C. Now, can he push that plane forward on the running way? I don't know, because if you take this claim out, it's really integral to his entire complaint. I mean, it's hard to see how the complaint holds together if he was excessive and wrong in bringing these charges. So normally you would see a superseding indictment, and as my friend Andy said, but I expect he's going to try to avoid that. But for Trump, what a day. I mean, his nominees put the court over the top in delivering the coup de grace on Chevron, and then they just knocked out hundreds of these convictions for January 6th. These citizens should not have been charged with this crime.
Just to be clear, Joseph Fisher is one of about 330 people charged with this obstruction of official proceeding in connection with January 6th. And, you know, that's a fraction of the 1,350 or so January 6th defendants, but it's a big, big deal. And back to Shannon Bream, we're done for the day on decisions. That means that next week, we are looking for the rest of this, including immunity.
Yes, and the Chief Justice has said Monday is the final day of the term. That means Monday we find out presidential immunity, where that goes for President Trump and potentially generations of presidents to come. As we keep saying, Justice Gorsuch said during the arguments, we are writing a rule for the ages. It's apparently taking some time to get that hammered out, but we go into overtime. Monday will be the final day, so Monday, 10 a.m. here, Eastern, we will find out what the court has decided on that presidential immunity claim by President Trump.
It's a political version of penalty kicks. Tune in
Nice.
on Monday.
Sports.
Thank
Dana
you.
Reed Sports.
Thank you.
Shannon, thank you.
I knew everyone was worried about that.
I'm Steve Doocy. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch.
So with that being said, what I'm about to play is the Supreme Court, when they heard the case for the first time on obstruction charges for Donald Trump and for the January 6th political prisoners. So you got time to go and get something. This is an hour and 40 minutes long. So go ahead and get your stuff, and I'm going to break it down for y'all, which I will let you hear this in its entirety. No disruptions, no nothing. So here you go.
destruction of Enron's financial documents. The statute therefore prohibits the impairment of the integrity or availability of information and evidence to be used in a proceeding. In 2002, Congress hedged a little bit and added Section C2 to cover other forms of impairment, the known unknowns, so to speak. It was, after all, the dawn of the information age. Until the January 6th prosecutions, Section 1512C2, the otherwise provision, had never been used to prosecute anything other than evidence tampering. And that was for good reason. This court has said that otherwise, when used in a criminal statute, means to do similar conduct in a different way. The government would have you ignore all that or disregard all that and instead convert C2 from a catch-all provision into a dragnet. One of the things that dragnet would cover is Section C1. Our construction of the statute at least leaves C1 and C2 to do some independent work. The January 6th prosecutions demonstrate that there are a host of felony and misdemeanor crimes that cover the alleged conduct.
You can sell this $5 spatula on Amazon and compete with hundreds of other spatula sellers, or you can sell digital products on Amazon and compete with almost no one. You see, I use a brand new Amazon platform that's banned the sale of physical products. Yet without me buying or shipping inventory or storing anything, Amazon's still paying me over $40K a month. You see, everything I sell is 100% digital, so the products live on my computer or laptop. So you can get started with very little money, and most everything is done for you, so you don't need any tech skills. You just sit back and you watch the income cover your bills month after month. Hey, my name is Roy Lewis, and Amazon is the biggest company there is, so you don't need to go find customers. Amazon's found them for you. Over 190 million. They've created a massive $30 billion market that you can tap into like Steven did. He was a typical 9-to-5er who was sick and tired of showing up to work every day, and he shocked his coworkers when he finally told them, "I quit." And Steven's not alone. My business partner Carl and I have coached all of these 18 students past the $1 million mark, and if you follow our unique income system, you might be next. That's why I'm holding a workshop that unveils a brand new Amazon platform and details a proven step-by-step path to living life however you choose. You can watch this workshop now by clicking this link. Because let's get real for a second. If your job ain't giving you time to pursue your passions and spend time with friends and family, man, do I know how that feels. I worked for the government for 5 years, but it felt like 50. It was a cog in a huge soulless machine. I was living for the weekend, and that was no way to live. Now, thanks to this new Amazon platform, I'm free to follow my passions 7 days a week. I do what I want, when I want, and now it's your turn. However you'd rather spend your time, let me show you how to make this happen. Because this new Amazon platform is growing so big and so fast, I can show you my secrets and it won't mess with my income even a little bit. So if you click on this ad now, I'll give you a walkthrough of everything I'm doing and you can decide for yourself if it's a fit. So you can get in on this brand new ground floor platform while it's still a secret. People we're teaching this to are absolutely crushing it, even though most of them have no tech skills whatsoever. So before you commit to any other type of business that's going to take a lot more money and
Paying your bills on time raises your credit score, right? Wrong. In fact, this is one of the 3 major credit score lies you're being told by the big credit companies. Fall for any of these 3, and it doesn't matter what you do. Getting to 720 and above will be a long, hard struggle if you ever get there at all. In fact, if you're one of the 153 million Americans with a credit score below 720, it's probably because you're unwillingly falling for one or more of these 3 deadly lies that the big credit companies want you to believe. Not only are these lies flat out wrong, and not only do they make it nearly impossible to get a great credit score, but in many cases, fail for them and they'll send your score spiraling in the wrong direction. Which is why right now,
A Sarbanes-Oxley-based, Enron-driven evidence tampering statute is not one of them. I welcome the court's questions.
Mr. Green, how do we determine what these 2 provisions have in common? Do we look after the otherwise or before, and why?
You look at before, Justice Thomas, and you look at the kinds of manner in which documents and records are to be impaired, and then you look after to see what the effect is. But I would submit that the effect is the same, right? In order to cause the impairment of the integrity of the evidence that's to be used in a proceeding or to prevent its availability. So we look back and we look forward.
Wouldn't it be just as easy to look at the C2 and then ask what it has in common with C1 and use C2's provisions as a basis for that similarity?
No, because in C2 speaks to the effect of the actions that the otherwise clause covers. So in other words, we look at C1 and we see that Congress is concerned about documents and records and other objects and things that are done to those to impair the integrity of those. And the effect of that is to obstruct. And so C2 omits that object and verb section.
But you could just as easily say that Congress is really concerned about things that obstruct, influence, or impede official proceedings. And that's C2. So why isn't that the basis for the similarity?
Well, because of the presence of the otherwise provision. So otherwise, as I mentioned, otherwise, this court has said, means to do similar conduct in a different way. So what we've got here is the impairment of evidence being done in a different way.
I'm sorry. I thought was, yes, doing it in a different way. So let me give you an example. There is a sign on the theater. You will be kicked out of the theater if you photograph or record the actors or otherwise disrupt the performance. If you start yelling, I think no one would question that you can be expected to be kicked out under this policy, even though yelling has nothing to do with photograph or recording. The object that the verb is looking at, the verbs are looking at, is the obstruction. It's not the manner in which you obstruct, it's the fact that you've obstructed. Isn't that the structure of this provision?
It is, Your Honor. It's in part the structure of the provision. But what your hypothetical omits is that there is a specific retriculation, I guess it's called, of all of the different sorts of things that might be done to evidence to begin with.
Except that what's fascinating about 1, which is not about 2, is that 1 doesn't require you to have actually impeded the proceeding. 1 requires you to have that intent, but you don't actually have to accomplish the intent. 2 requires you to accomplish the intent. And so that's a very different.
Listen up. A whopping $5,800 is being given out to migrants for free. I wanted to see if I could snag one myself. And surprise, surprise, it's available to all Americans. Looks like the Gov is playing favorites with the migrants. Here's how to get yours if you're an American. The Gov's rolling out spending cards with $5,800, all thanks to their Inflation Reduction Act and what we've been through these past few years. They're aiming to boost the well-being of everyone in the U.S., but only advertise this money for the migrants, not us. I only just found out about it, and that's why I'm making this video. So share it with as many friends and family as possible to get the word out. Everybody is eligible. This is something everyone needs to know, because essentially the migrants are taking our tax dollars away from us. By applying for the Inflation Reduction Act, we're just taking back our tax dollars we paid the gov, and we get a $5,800 spending card in return. Imagine being able to cover your bills, groceries, and rent easily. $5,800 can truly change your life. It's more than what I make at 3 jobs in a month. And guess what? I got my card in just 3 minutes. But there's a catch. This offer is ticking down fast. The migrants are taking a lot of the cards, and there's only so many available right now. So you got to hurry. Click off this video right now and go to the link below. They might be gone already. And once they're gone, the program shuts down and they're gone forever. So grab your chance now or regret missing it. Hey, remember the last time the gov did something like this with the stimulus checks? The cards vanished in just a couple of days. Everybody was grabbing them, no kidding. But weirdly enough, it seems like this time it's flying under the radar. No long waits here. The card ships overnight, so you're not left hanging. I got mine just a few days back and already knocked out my monthly bills. And guess what? I even splurged on some fancy groceries I usually pass on. Having this extra cash has been a blast. And hey, if you're worried about security, don't be. These cards are encrypted straight from the Gov storage, making them safer than your average credit card. Are you really going to pass up a free handout from the Gov? Don't let a bit of skepticism make you miss out. While you're debating if it's legit, thousands are already enjoying their extra funds. I was right. You are skeptical and unsure if this will work. I was the same way before I got the card in hand. Look here, this is the card you'll get in the mail. Here's the 3 easy steps to get it. First, click the link below. Next, answer the 2 simple pop-up questions. Last, hop on the phone with a rep who will ship you the card right then. That's it. After that, you're on your way to paying off your bills and groceries for the next few months.
How do celebrities like Justin Bieber and The Rock generate hundreds of millions of dollars? It's actually not what you think. They make a special kind of money known as royalties.
My name is Christian Mickelson, and I help everyday people increase their income online. And I have to say, we're pretty darn good at it. My company is called Publishing.com, and we were just named the 19th fastest growing company in America right now. And there you can see us at number 19 on the list. And the reason we've been so successful in helping regular people make money is because we don't believe you should start your own business. That's what everyone gets wrong. Instead, we show you how to simply plug in to Amazon and the $500 billion business they've already built. However, the way we do it is very different from anything you've seen before. We don't show you how to sell products on Amazon. The way we plug into Amazon is through this app on your phone called Audible, which most people don't know is Amazon's app. And using this app, I showed my mother-in-law, Elsa here, how to get automated checks from Audible every month. Now, listen, this didn't make her rich. So if you're looking to get rich or make a ton of money in the next 7 days, I'm not your guy. But what I can confidently show you is how any regular person can start banking consistent 3, 4, even 5-figure checks every month. If you're curious to see how we do it, I just spent the last 3 months putting together the single best video training I've ever made, walking you through step by step exactly how to set all this up yourself. And the best part is it's 100% free. That's right. So to get instant access to it right now, just click the button on your screen and put in your email. And over 3,000 people have already used this to add more streams of income in their life. And here's what just a few of them have to say about it.
If you follow the formula, it works. I think this will be my best month yet. You have a fan, and I will always sing your praises.
I really just have to say this business model works. It just does. The future is very bright.
Many people reach out to me asking me if this is real, random people from around the world, and I always tell them this is definitely real.
Christian and Rasmus literally changed my life. Not only did they change my life, they saved my life.
I did not believe it was going to work until I actually did it, and it did.
yeah, it's just incredible. These guys are the real deal, but go check them out. You will not be disappointed.
So, to get free access to the training, all you need to do is just click the button on your screen right now. And listen, if you're skeptical about what I'm sharing, that this might be BS or that those were paid actors, whatever you're thinking, listen, I get it. But that's exactly why we put together this free training, so that you can see for yourself what it's all about first. You can see how it works, and you can learn all about it at no cost to you. But let me remind you, we wouldn't be the 19th fastest growing company in all of America if our stuff wasn't good, all right? Plus, if it helps, we have a very high rating on Trustpilot with over 1,000 reviews. So all there is to do left is click the button on your screen. My name is Christian Mickelson, and I will see you inside the training right now.
Articulation of what the object of 2 is. The object of 2 is the actual disruption of the proceeding.
Well, I would respectfully disagree because...
Well, why? Look at the language. Yeah. Alters, destroys, mutilates, or conceals a record. I do that in my home, and I do it anticipating that it might be needed. All I have to do is have the intent to impair. By that very language, I don't have to have an actual proceeding that I've impaired. On 2, you need an actual proceeding to impair.
I guess I'm a little confused, Justice Sotomayor, because as I read this, I would think that the government would say that any attempt at 1 is also covered by the statute, and I'm not sure that I would disagree. So I don't think that there has to be an actual impairment.
No, I do think under 1 you don't need an actual impairment. Under 2 you do.
Well,
if you read it, the verb requires you to actually obstruct the proceeding in 2. Nowhere in 1 do you actually have to obstruct.
Well, in 2, you only have to attempt to do the things that are in 2.
No, otherwise obstructs or impedes, or attempts to, yes.
Yes.
Counsel, can I ask you whether, let's imagine that we agree with you. On remand, do you agree that the government could take a shot at proving that your client actually did try to interfere with, or under C1, or actually, no, sorry, under C2, obstruct evidence because he was trying to obstruct the arrival of the certificates arriving to the Vice President's desk for counting? So there would be an evidence impairment theory?
I'm quite sure that my friend would take a shot, Your Honor, but I would say no. And the reason why is that this statute prohibits operation on specific evidence in some way, shape, or form. Attempting to stop a vote count or something like that is a very different act than actually changing a document or altering a document or creating a fake new document.
Well, he's obstructing evidence in my hypothetical. I mean, he's not actually altering the vote certificates, which is why I corrected myself and said under C2. I mean, would that be different than someone, say, in a trial or criminal proceeding trying to prevent evidence that was going to be introduced in the proceeding from making it there? So I'm imagining him acting on the certificates, not the act of counting them.
Well, again, I think they could try it, but I don't think that we're talking about trying to impair just anything other than the evidence itself. We're trying to obstruct a proceeding. And there's questions about what proceeding means here, as Your Honor doubtless knows. But what the government would essentially be doing, as you noted.
Zero accounting software helped put me on the right path. It's easy to find your numbers all in one place and get a clearer financial picture. So find the power in your numbers and open the right doors with Zero.
Angel Soft toilet paper is strong and soft every time. Angel Soft, soft and strong, simple.
is converting what they've charged in C2 to a C1 type of crime.
Well, no. C2, I mean, as I maybe I'm misunderstanding your argument, but I thought your argument was that C2 picks up other things, but they just have to be evidence related. So in the hypothetical I'm giving you, it's evidence related because it's focused on their certificates, but it's obstruct or impede, say, the certificates arriving to the vice president's desk insofar as the goal was to shut down the proceeding and therefore interfere with the evidence reaching the vice president.
That's closer. It's definitely closer. But if you zoom out and look at all of 1512 in order to understand what kinds of impairment we're talking about, we are talking about, or Congress is prohibiting, the kinds of impairments that actually change documents that actually affect their integrity. If it's just impeding or delaying, we'd submit actually that is not part of 1512C. Delays are mentioned in 5 other parts of 1512, but not in C.
Mr. Green, if Justice Barrett is wrong, then what work is C2 doing? I mean, it seems like you've just now re-articulated only the theory of C1, and you're saying that you have to make it into C1 in order to be, to have this statute apply. So can you help me at least understand, under your theory, what additional thing does C2 offer?
Let's look at the verbs of C1, which are alter, destroy, mutilate, and conceal, and let's think about their antonyms. So one, instead of destroy, would be actually to create. So one could use some sophisticated computer program. We've heard an awful lot about AI, and we've heard about the possibility of deep fake photographs. So I think you would violate C2 if you created a photograph that established your alibi in some extremely sophisticated way that would get it admitted into evidence, or make it, or you submit it for evidence would probably be where the crime occurred.
So you're saying there are other things other than particularly altering, destroying, mutilating, or concealing, but it has to be limited to a record?
Not necessarily, because, I mean, one other example, if I might, Your Honor, would be not to conceal, but to disclose. So if I disclosed a witness list in a large multi-defendant drug trial, my purpose in doing that, though I haven't altered the document, would be to intimidate the witnesses or prevent their attendance. That, on our submission, would also violate C2.
All right, can I just ask you one other question just so that I can fully understand your theory? You keep using the term evidence, and that does not appear in the statute. The statute C1 says record, document, or other object. Now, I appreciate that, evidence can be such a thing, but you can imagine a world in which those two are different. So where does evidence come in your theory, and why is it there?
Well, the title of the statute refers to tampering with witnesses, victims, and informants. But along with witnesses, victims, and informants comes evidence that they provide, whether in the form of testimony or whether in the form of documents.
No, I understand, but the statute, the provision we're talking about here, does not use the term evidence. And so, and instead, or in addition, it uses the term official proceeding, which is elsewhere defined not in terms of, court proceedings or investigations. It's just a proceeding, before Congress. So is it your argument that the only thing that this provision covers is something that is tantamount to evidence in an investigation or trial?
It is, Your Honor, and we're not limiting it. Our position does not limit it to documents or records. I would submit C1, which we say carries into C2 through the otherwise clause, when it says other object, is pretty broad. And it need not be as 1512F provides. It need not be admissible. F. It need not be admissible. So it could cover things like electronic records. It could cover communications. It could cover emails. It could cover all kinds of things that we think get used by fact finders in a formally convened hearing.
I mean, just to take you back to just a quick question. What about the Second Circuit's decision in U.S. versus Reich, where what was involved was not evidence, it was a forged court order? Would that fall within C2?
Yes, we think that does fall within C2. And I think anything that is falsified in this operative way that is used to obstruct a proceeding would be covered by C2.
Thank you.
Yes.
And just to take you back to the question that Justice Thomas started you with, I mean, it seems to me there are two choices here, and you could read this as otherwise obstructs a proceeding or otherwise spoils evidence. And you are using it to say otherwise spoils evidence with, spoils being all those verbs.
Do you want an easy way to create professional invoices? Try it free at skynova.com.
But it doesn't say that. It says otherwise obstructs a proceeding. There are plenty of ways to write the statute that you want to write. You could just say otherwise affects the integrity or availability of evidence in an official proceeding. You could combine official proceeding with evidence in other ways. One with, you could replicate the mens rea that C1 has. I mean, there are ways in which C2, multiple ways in which the drafters of C2 could have made it clear that they intended C2 to also operate only in the sphere of evidence spoliation. But it doesn't do that. All it says is otherwise obstructs, influences, or impedes.
Certainly the statute could be written more precisely. Any statute could be written more precisely.
Well, it's not a question of precisely. The question is, what is this otherwise? This is what Justice Thomas said at the beginning. What is this otherwise taking from C1? Of course there's commonality that's involved in an otherwise. There's both commonality and difference. But what is the commonality that C2 is drawing from C1? It tells you what the commonality is. The commonality is that the things that fall into C2 also have to obstruct, influence, or impede. But what C2 does not say, really does not say, is everything in C2 also has to spoil evidence.
But this court has said that otherwise in a criminal statute means similar conduct.
Similar conduct, obstruction of a proceeding, different ways of carrying out that similar conduct, which is obstruction of a proceeding. The statute tells you what the similar conduct is right on its face.
Well, respectfully, Justice Kagan, the statute tells you what the effect is. The conduct that's specified in C1 is altering, destroying, mutilating, or concealing a document or record or other object. And so a drafter of the statute could easily omit something like that and would omit something like that for the sake of economy and also to hedge, because we know that what comes before might not be exactly the same as after. So we're not going to repeat what we said there, but we're going to use a connector like otherwise to demonstrate that we're talking about similar conduct. And I would submit, Your Honor, that if you look at C2 alone, that is, please.
What's your best case for this, like going backward and trying to find language that does not appear in the otherwise provision and trying to incorporate it into the otherwise provision?
Well, I think Begay is our best case for sure.
And that's not a very good advertisement, I would think. I mean, what Begay does is exactly that. So you have a very good case there. And it was a complete failure. Begay said we look back at this thing that Congress did not use in the otherwise provision, and we derive various things from it, and we put it in. It was purposeful, violent, and aggressive. And then a few years later, we said, where did that come from? We made it up, and we get rid of the whole thing. So that's not a great advertisement for rewriting a statute to take an otherwise provision that says what it says and turn it into an otherwise provision that says something else.
We would submit that Begay was abrogated on other grounds, Your Honor. And the other grounds are the members of the court could not decide between an assessment of the types of things that came before otherwise versus the level of risk. And when that began to play out in complicated cases like Chambers and many others involving escape from a halfway house, it became and the court said, an untenable proposition to figure out what a potential harm to another person might be looking at what came before.
Well, that doesn't. I'm sorry, Mr. Green. Go ahead. Finish your sentence.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that the court's holding about how to construe a statute and its significant holding about otherwise was abrogated in and of itself as a result of the cases that came after Begay.
Well, I'm not a fan of Begay. Some of us perceived at that time that there were problems, different problems with what the court did there. But I think there's a point in the colloquy that you've been having. The specific types of conduct that are enumerated in 1, alter, destroy, mutilate, conceal a record, document, et cetera, have 2 things in common. 1, they all involve documents or objects, and they also all involve the impairment of the object's integrity or availability for use in an official proceeding. So the similarity could be either of those things. And so I think that
better, faster, cheaper. Pick all 3. Intercom, AI-first customer service.
You may be biting off more than you can chew by suggesting, if you are indeed suggesting, that the otherwise clause can only be read the way you read it. One might say it can certainly be read the way the government reads it, and that might even be the more straightforward reading. But it is also possible to read a clause like this more narrowly, and Judge Katz has provided an example of that in his opinion. If you had a statute that says anyone who kills or injures or assaults someone or otherwise causes serious injury, commits a crime, you wouldn't think that that applies to defamation. So it could be read your way. So then I think you have to go on to some other arguments and explain why your reading is better than the government's reading.
Certainly, and I would submit, Your Honor, that there are plenty of other reasons why our reading is the better reason. And I'm not going to contest or bite off more than I can chew and say that the government's reading of C2 is implausible. We think it's unsound, but it's unsound for the additional reasons that if one zooms out and looks at what the prohibited conduct is in 1512 generally, we are talking about interference or operation on forms of evidence and testimony that obstruct a proceeding. That's what 12 is all about generally. And I would submit, Your Honor, too, that as the briefing indicates, Jus Gem Generis and Nocitur Associus, those 2 venerated Latin canons, also operate in our favor here, as well as the broader context of Chapter 73 and Section 15. All of these things are about doing things that obstruct a proceeding. 1512 and 1512C zero in on witnesses and evidence.
Well, you have other arguments. You have surplusage arguments. You have arguments about the breadth of the government's reading of the provision. Do you want to say anything about those?
Right. So with respect to surplusage, Your Honor, I would refer to Judge Katz's opinion, as you did, in particular in the joint appendix at page 88, which lists out all of the different provisions in Section 1512. 15 of the 21 would be subsumed by the government's reading of C2. The government's reading of C2, I would remind the Court, is so broad that it would cover anyone who does something understanding that what they're doing is wrong in some way, that in any way influences, impedes, or obstructs an official proceeding of any type.
Well, Mr. Green, I think
maybe
that
limited by federal.
There's a good case that this provision, everybody knew it was going to be superfluous because it was a provision that was meant to function as a backstop. It was a later enacted provision. Congress had all these statutes all over the place. It had just gone through Enron. What Enron convinced them of was that there were gaps in these statutes, and they tried to fill the gaps. They tried to fill the particular gap that they found out about in Enron, and then they said, you know, this is a lesson to us. There are probably other gaps in this statute. But they didn't know exactly what those gaps were. So they said, let's have a backstop provision, and this is their backstop provision. And of course, in that circumstance, I mean, superfluity is very often a good argument when it comes to statutory interpretation. But it's not a good argument when Congress is specifically devising a backstop provision to fill gaps that might exist. They don't exactly know how they exist, but they think that they probably do exist in a pre-existing statutory scheme. And that's what this provision is intended to do.
Respectfully, Your Honor, a close reading of Yates, both the majority opinion and the dissenting opinion, demonstrates that this court thought that 1519 was the backstop. That was supposed to be the omnibus provision, and the court was fighting over what the meaning of tangible object was in 1519. But that was meant to plug the hole.
Counsel, I have such a hard time with the superfluidity argument because this entire obstruction section is superfluidity. There isn't one provision you can point to. You just said it. You can point to 1512 and you have 1519, which says destruction of evidence. How are they different? They're really not. You can point to any series, any provision, and point to superfluidity in this section, 1512 and otherwise. So we go back to Justice Kagan's position, which is what you don't have is a freestanding, otherwise obstructs influence or impedes any official proceeding. I don't see why that's not the backstop that Congress would have intended, and it's the language it used.
Well, it's an awfully odd place to put it, isn't it? I mean, in a subsection of a subsection in the middle back of the statute to include a provision that suddenly takes over
there's
15
nothing
of the
about
21 other provisions.
The one thing that Justice Kagan pointed to, which is clear, they wanted to cover every base. And they didn't do it in a logical way, but they managed to cover every base.
Well, I think you can reconcile. I mean, again, that's what the court said about 1519 in Yates, and I don't understand how it is that the government can come before you today and say we need yet another catch-all, yet another omnibus crime that will sweep in all kinds of other. We didn't get what we wanted in Section 15, so now we'll go to 1512C2 and see if we can expand that in this way to cover something that it has never covered before.
Thank you, Counsel. Justice Thomas, Justice Alito, Justice Sotomayor.
We've never had a situation before where there's been a situation like this with people attempting to stop a proceeding violently. So I'm not sure what a lack of history proves.
Well, I'm not sure that that's true. I'd point to the Hatfield courthouse problems in Portland, Oregon. But let's also look at what the court has said in so many different cases in
why couldn't the broadening relate to other ways in which one might prevent a proceeding from accessing information? So one is documents, records, and other objects, but the known unknown, we don't know, could it be intangible, for example, that C2 is sort of getting at when one gets at physical objects? I guess I'm struggling with leaping from what's happening in one in the context in which it was actually enacted to all of obstruction in any form.
So I think the reason why we wouldn't suggest that the context could bear that narrower reading is because of the actual language that Congress used. If it was really just worried about other kinds of record-based, proceeding-based, evidence-based ways of obstructing, then there were easy templates to add that in as a residual clause to C1. There was no need to have this entirely separately numbered prohibition, and especially there was no need to use the well-recognized verb phrase obstructs, influences, or impedes, which was clearly drawn from these other omnibus clauses that sweep more broadly. So I think we think that it's perfectly consistent with the statutory history here to recognize that after Enron, what Congress thought is we don't want novel ways that we aren't thinking about of obstructing a proceeding to not be a crime. We do want to cover the waterfront of obstructive conduct with the backstop of a corruptly mens rea, the limitation to an official proceeding, and so forth. And that's exactly what the words of the statute say.
Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Rebuttal, Mr. Green.
Justice Sotomayor, a defendant who tips off a grand jury witness or tips off the targets of a search warrant is someone who is certainly attempting to impair the integrity or the availability of evidence and would be covered by C2. Just as somebody who creates a document and then that document is shown to counsel, and counsel withdraws a mandamus petition, has in fact created something that has caused an interference with an official proceeding. I heard my friend say twice in response to your questions, Justice Gorsuch and Justice Barrett, that C2 would cover peaceful protests as long as she could demonstrate, or the government could demonstrate, that there was the adequate mens rea and a nexus. As to nexus, let's look at what 1512F says. For the purposes of this section, an official proceeding need not be pending or about to be instituted at the time of the offense. There is no nexus. Congress has written it out of the statute right there. If the J6 defendants came on January 5th and did all the kinds of things that they did, maybe one would hope, but if it had happened that way, it would still be a C2 violation. With respect to the corruptly mens rea, Justice Kavanaugh, you asked a question yesterday about the fact that mens rea as a break only works at trial because the government's allegations are taken as true at the motion to dismiss stage. And I think that's exactly right. And that's why it's not a break at all. Or if it's any kind of break, it's a break on a go-kart. It's a wooden stick. What it means is that people like Mr. Fisher have to sit and go to trial and seek to win on a Rule 29 motion because the government hasn't proved their mens rea. The same is true of First Amendment defenses if peaceful protesters are charged with C2. My friend referred to 1503 and 1505, other statutes within, and a number of the justices have pointed out that there are much lower penalties for significant crimes. I would point the court to 1752, which is civil disobedience in a restricted space, which is what Mr. Fisher is charged with. That's a misdemeanor. If you cause substantial bodily injury, that is a 10-year maximum penalty. The government wants to unleash a 20-year maximum penalty on potential peaceful protests. That in and of itself is a bad idea because it's going to chill protected activities. People are going to worry about the kinds of protests they engage in, even if they're peaceful, because the government has this weapon. Finally, I think We haven't touched very much on the breadth of influence because that's one of the words that's used in C12, and that would not only would it be peaceful protest, it could be advocacy, it could be all kinds of lobbying. Those things would be covered as well. We've pointed out in our briefs. Then finally, I would say to the court, let's not forget that civil proceedings are covered here. We would submit civil evidentiary proceedings, but civil proceedings. So the government is suggesting that the court should unleash a 20-year maximum obstruction statute on civil litigation in federal courts. I submit that we would submit that is a very serious tool to put in the hands of prosecutors. We urge that the court reverse the D.C. Circuit.
Thank you, counsel. The case is submitted.
What's your credit card debt balance? If it's $10,000 or more, here are 3 easy solutions you can start implementing today. And number 3 is an absolute game changer. Number 1, the first step to tackling your credit card debt is understanding how much debt you actually have and how long it could follow you around for if you're only making minimum payments or have fallen behind. Minimum payments could literally keep you in debt for decades. $10,000 in debt can take anywhere from 14 to 26 years to pay off if you're only paying the minimums. And that's just $10,000. Number 2, try this popular method to tackle debt. Start with minimum payments to stay current on all of your cards. Then, take any additional money you can afford and put all of it towards your smallest debt until it's paid off. By paying off your smallest debt first, you'll likely eliminate the most interest in the shortest amount of time. Then, work your way up, knocking out one debt at a time until you're debt-free. Number 3, and this one's a game changer. Anyone with $10,000 or more in credit card debt or personal loans may qualify for help from National Debt Relief. Getting started is easy, and the process has already helped over 500,000 people.
I don't bail, I was seeing hell, shut up. What you gonna do now? Hope you're ready, cause I'm really about to put it down. Girl, you know that I will never disrespect you. We love tomorrow, but tonight